My name is Perrin Bonza. I am a filmmaker and former dancer. I am also a Ngalama man, but I've never lived on my ancestral homelands near Karratha in Western Australia. It's home to a spectacular collection of ancient rock art. Here, Ngalama people were among those who carved more than 1 million stories into stone over 50,000 years ago. These people are my ancestors. Now, I've come to Ngalama country, Karratha, to see for myself the effect industry has on these ancient petroglyphs at Murujuga, and to explore my own cultural connections. My great-grandmother, being a part of the stolen generation, was taken from her homelands near Karratha to the Kimberleys where I grew up.
What we have here is some of the oldest rock art in the world. We're standing in a place called Murujuga, which has the highest concentration of rock art as well.
Clinton Walker is a Ngalama man and has been a tour guide here for 10 years. As he's done with thousands of others, today he's showing me this sacred site.
When we bring people in here to learn about the rock art, they come thinking that they're just going to look at a few pictures and petroglyphs and stuff, but they find out more. You know, they see that that picture has a story, it has a history. They learn the behaviour of animals through the images of the animals. They learn some rock art are depicting animals that are no longer here, and so they see a history of this country that they won't necessarily learn about in a book or in any documentary.
All the rock art on the Burrup Peninsula informs the cultural beliefs of the Indigenous language groups, from the West Australian coast to the Central Desert. It provides the lore, the songlines, and the continuing connection to country. But right next door is a massive industrial estate, including a gas refinery, iron ore leases, and a liquid ammonia plant. Now, there are concerns that plans to build a new fertiliser plant here at Murujuga will potentially threaten the rock art.
In Canberra, they're not talking about Murujuga. They're not talking about it in the context of what we do in relation to its cultural connection to all of us, stories, the songlines, and all of the things that are important, the rock art. And so in Canberra, they're not talking about that. They're talking about the abundance of resources that exist in the Murujuga National Park on the Burrup Peninsula, which is available for sale to the highest bidder.
Do you think it's possible for industry and Ngalama heritage and culture to exist next to each other?
Not in its current state. We're not about stopping industry. We're not out here to stop development. We want to see that because it gives us employment opportunities, but it doesn't help us if it's destroying our heritage, our culture.
After conducting his own research at the Murujuga site, former CSIRO scientist Dr. John Black found that industrial pollution has already caused damage to these culturally significant artefacts.
The critical issue is that outer patina is very thin. It's only about twice the thickness of your hair. That outer layer is now being dissolved by the level of acids that's there. If you lose that outer layer, then you lose the rock art. And wherever there's an arrow, there's a new spalling away of the patina. The reason is the huge amount of pollution that's going into the air. The most important one is nitrogen dioxide, which forms acid rain. In many countries around the world, it is restricted enormously. A lot of stone buildings are impacted and decay because of the acid rain, but it also has a big impact on human health as well.
What happens if this rock art, what happens if it disappears?
Well, from a spiritual perspective, we believe that if we lose all this rock art, that we as the traditional owner will be punished. And our name as a people is Ngaluma, and Ngaluma means people of the flooded lands, of the flood country people. And our country was flooded in the past. And that was because of spirits punishing people. And we believe, that could happen again.
It's our job, and as custodians of the earth, as First Nations people, that was bestowed upon us through our birthright. It's not something that we can just relinquish. If we do, we become colonised in a way that will see us assimilated into the rest of Australia. There's no delineation point then. Our history disappears. And we then start 1788.
This is probably the best example of human culture through 60,000 years. That's unique in the world. If we value anything to do with human heritage, then we should preserve it.
So I'm Yalama as well. What are my responsibilities as a Yalama man to this artwork?
Yeah, you know, as an Yalama people, it's our job to look after it. It's our job to protect it, learn about it as well. You can't just see it and it's just a picture. You need to understand the story that's behind that picture. And once you know that story, you can then pass it down. And as an Yalama, that story doesn't just belong to you as an individual. It's got to be passed down to your family, your children, grandchildren, etc.
In 2023, the Murujuga Aboriginal Corporation and the federal government will submit an application to UNESCO to have Murujuga listed as a World Heritage Site. This gives me hope for the future of the rock art.
It brings another set of eyes that we hope will help convince industry that these wonderful petroglyphs need to be protected and they need to reduce their emissions.
This journey has made me realise that Murujuga is a part of Australia's heritage, not just for Yalama people. More can and should be done to preserve the rock art. If we value our cultural heritage, then this is something we all need to join together to protect.
This is our story. And like the Sistine Chapel, that is our cathedral of stories that exist for us, not just as part of Indigenous culture, but as part of Australia's story. And I hope that when we do that and we get to that stage, we still have something to salvage.